First of all, good morning, and thank you for coming out. I am joined by a number of elected officials and a tremendous group, cross-section of community leaders to do what we've done before, but raise our voice even louder this time. And that is to ask that this line, which is one of the busiest lines on Long Island Railroad, be electrified. We just saw a train pass. It is fueled by diesel fuel, some of the most polluting fuel that we have. You ask about the investment. Long Island, particularly Suffolk County and Brookhaven Town, has been shortchanged by the MTA. And it's time that the MTA make an investment in this island, particularly in light of the fact that President Biden's infrastructure, $1.1 billion passed. That is supposed to help rebuild our infrastructure. We're asking for a 20th century technology, electrification. Diesel is a 19th century technology. We haven't even asked for a 21st century technology like maglev. But you look across, we're at the Stony Brook station. You know what's on the other side of this station? A university with 25,000 students. And yet we have very little train traffic. We need, as a county, as a state, and as a nation, to start looking at trains and connecting them with buses and creating mass transit for the suburbs. And this is a perfect example of what needs to be done. Electrification stops at Huntington. It stops at Ronkonkoma. It stops at Babylon. And most of Suffolk County doesn't have the benefit of electrification. So I'm joined here with several elected officials. They're going to be far more eloquent than I can be. So let me start with our State Senator, MATTERA.
Wow, I'm actually before my great Assemblyman, Mr. Engelbright. I'm like but Supervisor Romaine, I thank you so much for today. How important this is for our community, electrification. Think about something. Right, 20th century, we're in the 21st century and we're sitting here today saying diesel. We need to protect our environment. But you know what? How about this? All our residents in this area are going to Ronkonkoma train station. They're driving. We need to make sure that our residents are coming to our train stations here on the North Shore. And you know what? So we could go from Port Jefferson all the way and not get off the train over in Huntington. We need to make sure that we're there for the commuters. Mass transit is so important for our future, and the MTA shortchanges us all the time. And as State Senator, I'm here a year and a half. We need, show us the money. We need the money to make sure this gets done and make it a reality. This has been going on for a feasibility study since 1980. In the 80s. What are we doing? This is why, and I commend our supervisor for having this. And I know you had this plenty of times before.
Many times. Yeah.
Many times before. You know, the third track, Ronkonkoma, look what that's going to be doing for our communities to make sure they could go into the city, get into the city to Penn Station faster, right? Proud of that. Ronkonkoma hub with the project that's going on to make sure, to make sure that, you know, our rail is important to get people off the streets. Look what's happening with our gas prices right now, what's going on. We need to make sure we get people to use mass transit and not have to go again from the North Shore to go to Ronkonkoma train station. I know it's going to take years, but let's get this done now. Just like what the supervisor said about the infrastructure money. 11.2 million plus was generated to New York State. I want to know, how much are we receiving? MTA, I want to know right now. Governor Hochul, how much are we receiving right now for the infrastructure money that was received from the federal government? We don't know this. It's amazing. We have a $220 billion budget that a lot we don't know. So we, as elected officials, being bipartisan, this is a very bipartisan group. And I'm so proud to be here with the chambers. I got my good friend Gloria Rocky over here, which I love. Cares about this community, our chambers. Look at all these leaders. This isn't about politics right now. This is about our community. We want answers. Show us the money. We need the money so we can get this done. I got a perfect Libby. We got Mitch Pally here, which is going to be leaving us, but I know he always will be here. He will be a voice also to make sure, I know he says he's going to retire, but that's not going to happen. Because guess what? Once you're in, you can't leave us. You know that. And there's a voice. He sat on the MTA. I know we worked hard for this. We need to make sure this gets done and make sure that this is going to be a reality. So guess what, guys? Thank you. We need to be a voice. We need to be heard. Today is the day. We want the infrastructure money to come to the MTA to make sure the Port Jefferson to Huntington line is going to be electrified. Thank you so much.
Someone that has been always a strong champion of the environment and of electrification and of mass transit, our Assemblyman, Steve Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So 3.5 years ago, we passed landmark legislation at the state level to protect the future quality of life of every New Yorker. The Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act calls for moving to electrification across all sectors: residential, transportation, industrial, commercial. In that same year, to give you some idea of the tone deafness that we have sometimes experienced from the Long Island Railroad, they had 55 diesel engines to be purchased new. Maybe they haven't figured it out yet, but diesels are, as the supervisor indicated, antique technology. And we need to move toward technology that does not pollute the air, does not create asthma, does not create lung disease and kill our citizens, that does not cause the atmosphere to become further infused with carbon dioxide that causes sea level to rise and drown our island. It's important that we not encourage continued problems with climate change. And one way to do that is to remove the diesels and to electrify. On top of that, electrification will improve the quality of life and the operation of the workforce in our entire region. We will have the ability to have large job gains in the region because of electrification. It will also raise the equity value of every home within the catchment of the railroad. It's not as if we stand up here and just verbalize this from time to time. We've been working toward a solution, even though the railroad seems to be somewhat tone deaf. With all of the electeds that I'm standing here with and more, we have pointed toward the Lawrence Aviation property, which is owned by the county, and the county is willing to work with us to relocate the beginning of the line. No, it's not the end of the line. It's the beginning of the line in Port Jefferson, to move it just a few blocks to the west, to eliminate a grade crossing, a deadly grade crossing at the top of the hill in Port Jefferson, and to allow a modern terminus for the North Line to take place. Instead of this happening, what we have is deafening silence. I know that they have planners in the MTA. I have heard that the planners are thinking of extending the line past Port Jefferson. That would require massive dislocation of residences. There would be a massive new cost. It would continue the grade crossing at 112. Why don't they come talk to us? So that is my plea. Rethink your priorities. Don't overthink this project. Don't overplan it. Sit down and work with this bipartisan group of elected officials, and let's get this done sooner rather than later.
Next, we have Jonathan KORNREICH, who is a councilman in the town of Brookhaven representing the 1st District, which includes Stony Brook.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Supervisor. And thank you, Senator, Assemblyman, and everyone else who came out here to join us. Welcome to Stony Brook, which is my hometown. And why did so many people come here? Why are all these elected officials from both parties, from different levels of government, different offices, different community groups from all over the area? Why did they come here? Maybe they came here because they heard about Druthers across the street and they want to get a good cup of coffee. Or they want to go to Bagel Express and then to Stony Brook Village to spend the day shopping, to go hang around with Gloria. I'm not sure, I'm not sure. But sadly, they're here on much more pressing business today. We're here today together to ask the MTA to please give us our fair share. We need electrification. Whether you're a commuter who's waking up in the morning to go to work in the city, or you're a visitor coming out on weekends to try to visit this area, or if you're a resident living in Port Jefferson Station and you have to listen to the sound of diesel thrumming all night. When this train rolled through a few minutes ago, we didn't just hear it, we felt it. The bass generated by diesel, you can feel it in your body. And people who live in Port Jefferson Station, they have to listen to it all day and all night. It's not fair. Let's get it together and upgrade. We're not even looking for the 21st century technology that the supervisor spoke about. We'll settle for 20th century. That's fine. And there's one other thing I want to say. I want you to take a look around at this group, and I want to echo Senator MATTERA, my friend. There's so much division in our country, and people often see the failures of government, and they get discouraged sometimes that we can get anything done. And truly, even looking at the timeline of this project, it's discouraging. But I'm really proud to work with this group of leaders and community leaders because they know when to put divisions aside and when we have to look for common sense solutions to the problems that we all face. And really, on 85% of things, we all agree. And this is a group of people that knows how to look for those commonalities. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to all these community leaders and fellow electeds, my colleagues. And most of all, I'll thank the MTA in advance for electrifying this line. Thank you.
Maybe premature. Thank you. And I think what Jonathan said reverberates. If you're going to find solutions to get things done, look not to Washington, but look to Brookhaven, because we work together. And our next speaker is going to be someone that served on the MTA board, I think, for 16 years? 14 years.
Make it longer than it was.
For 14 years, he served as our representative, Suffolk County, on the MTA. He was an advocate. He spoke for electrification. Here and the other lines, he spoke for modernization of our rail line, for better mass transit. He is also the executive director of the Long Island Builders Institute. Come on up. Everyone know Mitch.
Thank you, Supervisor. And for those of you who don't know, this is also my hometown. I live 5 minutes from here. And I can assure you, I go to Ronkonkoma when I have to take the train because I want a one-seat ride on an electric train. I had the honor and privilege of representing Long Island on the board for 14 years. The board is, of course, New York City dominated, and we had to fight for every dollar we got. This is the next step in that. We've now finished a number of major projects, and it's incumbent upon the two Long Island representatives on the MTA board, who both got confirmed by the state Senate this last week in that regard.
David
Mack and Sammy Chu, to say to the MTA, this is what we need for Long Island. Because they are our representatives there. They're the ones who can speak up at the meetings. They're the ones who can make sure that when the capital budget is allocated, Long Island gets what it needs, whether it's this electrification project or the one in Yaphank so that for Brookhaven Lab that we've been talking about for many, many years, these are the next things the MTA can do for Long Island. So give us a one-seat ride to ensure that the environment is protected. And I call on the Climate Action Council, which was created, to mandate to the MTA that they have to do this. The Climate Action Council is mandating things now to private industries. They should mandate to the MTA that it is your responsibility to electrify all the lines on Long Island that have not been electrified. We'll even throw in our friends in Oyster Bay in that regard, because only in that way will the mass transit system that we have not only transport our people, but do it in an environmentally sensitive manner. We must get rid of the diesel. Electrification is the way, and we have to do this now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Also, another island-wide group is the Association for Better Long Island. Kyle STROBER, who used to be an aide many years ago to Senator Schumer, is now its executive director for many years. Kyle.
Well, thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, the State Assembly and the Senate who are here today. It's hard to follow a guy like Mitch Pally, who really had a great idea on that mandate. But as somebody who represents Long Island's economy and drives economic development here, I can just say this. Our region is reliant on our connectivity. And especially when it comes to local communities, the more connective they are, the better it is for local businesses, the better it is for real estate values. And here is a classic example of why electrification is needed. Not to mention the added bonus of here in Stony Brook, connectivity will boost Stony Brook University. It'll not only attract more students, but it's a research hub in the state, one of the premier research hub in the state, and it'll attract more scientists and researchers to the university, then can cultivate new businesses and new inventions and potentially new jobs here in the region. So we here at ABLI fully support the town's efforts and the State Assembly and Senators' efforts to electrify this line. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about the State University, I don't know if Carl Mills is still here. Carl, right here. There he is. Let me introduce you to the new Government Affairs Director. Is that the proper title?
Assistant VP of Government Affairs. There you go.
Who's representing the university.
We're in good hands.
Used to work for State Senator Flanagan, State Senator Weeks, and now working for the university, putting his knowledge of government to work. And I got to tell you, when you have 25,000 students, boy, it'd be great to have some mass transit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you to all of our elected officials that are here. On behalf of the university, electrifying the Port Jeff line, one will make Stony Brook more competitive, and it will improve service and reliability, which is so critical to getting professors, students, and visitors to the university, to get people at the stadium for our sporting events, to get students back and forth. And it's a project that's long overdue, and Stony Brook fully supports electrifying the Port Jeff line.
Thank you. This deals with transportation. It deals with mass transportation. It deals with serving communities. But it also deals with the environment. And we have two representatives from the environment. See our Port Jefferson Station chamber there. And I'm going to start with the New York League of Conservation Voters. Great organization.
Thank you, Supervisor, and thank you to everyone else who's here as well. You can't overstate how important the Long Island Railroad is to Long Island's economy. I shudder to think about how much higher the state's greenhouse gas emissions would be and how much worse air pollution would be along our highways if we didn't have the Long Island Railroad. But we can make its impact even greater. The first thing you can do is invest in faster, more frequent, more reliable service. The second thing you can do, and this makes one easier as well, is to electrify the trains on all of the Long Island Railroad branches, not just Port Jeff, that currently run on diesel engines. So the New York League of Conservation Voters strongly endorses this. We think it's really important for meeting the state's climate goals. So thank you to Supervisor Romaine.
Thanks again.
Sorry, Patrick McClellan with the New York League of Conservation Voters. I'm the policy director here. I'd be happy to give you my card afterwards as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
And the other premier environmental organization is the Sierra Club. And my good friend Jane. Jane, come on up here. They've been pushing for this for a long time.
Yes, we certainly have. Sierra Club is probably one of the oldest recognized environmental clubs in the United States, starting in 1892. And we have been fighting for years to try to protect the environment and for every living thing, not just people, but all of our other living things that we depend upon. And so issues like electrification, not only of rail, but cars and transportation and lawn equipment, top priority for the Sierra Club. We've been making major gains in so many respects, but not when it comes to the rail. We certainly need it here. If anyone was here a moment ago when that train came through, it's not only polluting, it's also ear deafening, and it's getting harder and harder to hear people when they speak because of our deafness. My husband just bought an electric lawnmower, and I have to say he's so pleased with it, he will not give it up. He's out there mowing 2 and 3 times a week. And he thought that he would only get half the lawn done on a charge, and it turns out much better. But we're all aware of that. We're all looking at electric cars. Why? Because they're quieter, they're safer. In many respects, they're much better, and that goes for the train as well. We need to start looking at the environment as a whole, not as individual pieces. And when we do that, electrification is the way to go. It's supported in addition by the offshore wind projects that the Sierra Club is saying, let's go for it. Let's get our houses done. Let's get the solar on our roofs. Let's make our world a more comfortable, manageable living place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a number of civic groups and chambers of commerce, so I'm going to start with the Three Village Civic. I don't know who wants to represent them, but I see a lot of members here who are members. But Herb, come on up.
I'll ask our other members of the board to come up too.
Come on up.
We have Patty Schindler, Peter Lagakis, Peter St. Germain, members of the Three Village Civic Association. For those that don't know, the Three Village Civic Association was formed in 1942. I was not a founding member. I'm going to say that right away. Though, since 1942, we've had the same polluting technology ferrying our residents across Long Island, and it's about time that it changes. I give a lot of praise to the supervisor for initiating this conference and for all of our elected officials joining together in demanding that the MTA do better for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. The Civic may have been founded in 1942, but in 1939, Ward Melville started on the first shopping center in America, from what I'm told. And if you go down there, it's beautiful. It's that semicircle there. I'm going to ask the Ward Melville Heritage Executive Director, come on up here.
President.
And say, President?
President.
President.
Yeah.
Gloria Rocchio.
I didn't expect to speak, Ed, but one thing I can say, we're reviewing his documents and digitizing a lot of papers, and one of the things we discovered, he wanted this station moved. He wanted it moved further east. And we don't know why, but he kept in contact with the Long Island Railroad for years and years and years. Bottom line, he didn't win. So hopefully we win with this superstar.
We're not giving up.
Thanks, Gloria.
Okay, we have the Port Jefferson Station Terryville Civic Association. Come on up, guys. Sal, Charlie.
First, thank you to all our elected officials for inviting us here today. We're currently in the works of trying to bring life back to the 112 corridor in Port Jeff Station with the revitalization project, and this electrification would go miles in that direction. It would bring plenty of people back out to the island, living in our communities, bringing a better economy and everything else that'll help us along the way. So I'd just like to thank everybody here for everything they've done to at least come this far, and hopefully the MTA will finally take a step forward and help us do this. Thank you.
And just one other item, I think we also have to think of the seniors in this area that have to disembark at Huntington every time they want to go into New York City and vice versa. I think the ARP, the Alliance for Retired Americans, all of these groups are looking for that also, so that we can have a one trip into the city. And as the bipartisan legislator said, then we don't have to drive to Ronkonkoma, and we'll save a gallon of gas. Thank you.
Good point, Charlie. Excellent.
you have a very active Chamber of Commerce. Charlie, are you representing them? And I see, come on, we got a couple of them. Come on up.
Come on up. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, esteemed elected officials. I'm Charlie Lefkowitz. I'm president of the Three Village Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a lifelong resident of this great hamlet. As the supervisor mentioned, there were 25,000 students that are at Stony Brook University, but there were 40,000 commuters that come there every day between the University Hospital and the Cancer Center and the university. That was pre-pandemic numbers, but the university is our economic engine. We're proud as the Three Village Chamber to support this project, and this is certainly a bipartisan effort. I want to thank Mitch Pally because it was at a May 2017 Chamber of Commerce meeting. He said, if you want electrification, you got to convince your state representatives. We not only have our state representatives, we have our town representatives, and if you look at infrastructure on the North Shore of Long Island, there has not been one large infrastructure project of any significance in this part of the town of Brookhaven and Suffolk County. So we're asking the MTA, we're asking our federal officials, please, let's start the process of the engineering. We have a place to store the trains, and it's great to work with all the other communities, Port Jeff Station, the supervisor I know of Smithtown, Huntington. This is a game changer. So thank you for being here, and again, Supervisor, thank you for being at the forefront of this issue.
We have Jennifer. Come on up, Jennifer, representing the other Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Good morning, Jennifer Zvanner, President of the Port Jeff Station Terryville Chamber of Commerce. We love our community. I mean, Brookhaven just does us so much for our community and our local businesses. We have many, many local businesses, and with the electrification, it would really help revitalize that area. So please, whatever we can do, let's town of Brookhaven, let's get it done. Great job, guys. Thank you.
I mean, we could actually have had a much larger crowd here because there's so many groups from the AARP, the Sierra Club, to the Chamber of Commerce, so many groups that are supporting this. But I'm going to add, with the Harbor Task Force, that you would say, what do people with harbors have to do with railroads? But we're going to ask this talking. Laurie, George, we're going to ask this talking Harbor Task Force to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor.
Absolutely.
So I think we're probably the last speaker, and it's good to end on the environment. Lori and I are with the Setauket Harbor Task Force. We're on the front lines every day of climate change. We're seeing what's going on in terms of sea level rise and all the the negative aspects of climate change. It's caused because of carbon being dumped into the air from our transportation sector. It's time to get the Long Island Railroad to move forward, to be in line with the state's new plans, and let's get electrification on the railroad. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, my heartfelt thanks to everyone here because they took time out of their day to come to talk about an important issue. This is not an issue that's going away. We had this press conference about 2 or 3 years ago, and 2 years before that we had a press conference. So we're going to keep on beating on the MTA till they stop shortchanging Long Island and do right by us. We all pay taxes to the MTA, in case you haven't noticed, through a whole variety of things. So even when you record deeds and mortgages in the county clerk's office, when I was there, you still paid the MTA.
It's the payroll tax.
And the payroll tax and so many other things. So we contribute, but we don't see the investment being made. And now, with $1.1 billion, trillion, thank you. What's the difference between a trillion and a billion?
An order of magnitude.
In any event, if we could just get a small fraction of that money to do here to this rail line and to all the rail lines on Long Island and electrify them, it's cleaner, it's safer, it's faster, it will create jobs. Let's do it. MTA, wake up. Stop shortchanging Long Island. Now's the time to electrify.